Welcome. Today, we're diving into a topic that's, well, it's moving really fast from the fringe right to the core of institutional strategy. We're talking about real world assets, or RWA. And look, this isn't about chasing the next big thing. It's about a fundamental shift in the financial plumbing that's available to professional investors, completely changing how value is transferred and managed. This quote just nails it. We're moving beyond the purely speculative stuff and into the tokenization of real, predictable cash flows. This is where the family offices, the hedge funds, this is where they're quietly putting their attention. And believe me, it's for some very, very good reasons. At the end of the day, the concept is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You take real-world, income-generating assets, you bring their cash flows onto a blockchain, and boom, you unlock a whole new kind of programmable liquidity. It's really all about making illiquid assets liquid and making slow assets fast. So that brings us right to our first section. Why is the smart money actually paying attention to this? I mean, for any professional allocator, time is your most valuable asset, right? So let's just get straight to the why you should care. For a portfolio manager, this stuff translates into real, tangible advantages. We're talking about getting access to stable yield, but with intraday liquidity, finally escaping that old T+2 settlement cycle. We're looking at brand new market-neutral strategies, things like basis and carry trades. And then there's the operational alpha. I mean, 24/7 execution and atomic settlement, that cuts down so much back-office drag. And it's all packaged up with built-in risk controls and, maybe the biggest prize of all, the potential for truly uncorrelated diversification. So now that we've established the why, let's really demystify the what. We get the institutional appeal, but let's break down what we actually mean when we say real-world assets. At its core, an RWA is just a tokenized claim on something tangible, something that produces income off-chain. Think U.S. Treasuries, private credit loans, invoices from trade finance, or, hey, even the rental income from a portfolio of buildings. That token on the blockchain is simply a digital representation of your claim to that underlying asset and all its future cash flows. So how does this actually happen? It's really three key steps. First, an asset is identified, let's say a T-bill. Second, and listen, this part is absolutely critical for institutions, it's placed into a legally robust structure, like a special purpose vehicle or SPV, which basically walls it off from other risks. Then, third, a token that represents a claim on that asset inside the legal wrapper gets issued on-chain. And just like that, the value is now accessible, and more importantly, it's programmable. Okay, so we get the mechanics. Now let's look at the menu of options. For any portfolio manager, you've got to understand the different flavors of RWA, where their yield is coming from, and just as importantly, what their specific risk profiles look like. When you look at the options, you can see each one has a really distinct profile. For Treasury bills, your yield is the interest rate, but you have to keep an eye on duration risk and your custodian. With private credit, you're earning interest and fees, but the number one risk is the underwriting quality of those loans. Real estate yield, that comes from rent, but you're exposed to things like occupancy and location risk. And with insurance, you're earning premiums, but you have to model for those big catastrophe events. It's all about taking a sober, risk-adjusted view. But here's the thing. Investing in RWA means you have to analyze a completely new risk stack. This is definitely not a risk-free game. You've got to analyze everything from the underlying asset risk itself to the legal structure, the counterparties involved, how reliable the data oracles are, and of course, smart contract and regulatory risk. Diligence here is absolutely non-negotiable. All right, so we've defined the assets and we've talked about their risks. How do all these pieces actually fit together into real portfolio construction? Let's move from theory to practice. A pretty typical institutional approach is to think in sleeves. You might have a big core sleeve, maybe for income generation using tokenized credit. Then you'd have a diversifier sleeve to help smooth out volatility, and a smaller, tactical sleeve to jump on short-term opportunities like basis trades. RWA can play a really defined role in each and every one of these. And this is all grounded in professional risk management. We're talking about applying the same rigorous tools you'd use anywhere else. Setting volatility caps, monitoring correlations with heat maps, tracking duration, and running stress tests for things like a sudden rate spike. The key difference here? You get the added benefit of daily NAV and on-chain proofs, which gives you incredible transparency. So this brings us to a really key challenge for any allocator in this space. How do you combine the, often volatile but super composable world of DeFi native yield with the stable but traditionally siloed world of RWA yield? This is where platforms, sometimes called orchestration layers, come into play. This creates a really clear tension for investors. On one hand, you've got DeFi yield. It's amazingly composable, but it's often volatile and tied to the broader crypto market. On the other hand, you have RWA yield, uncorrelated, backed by real cash flows, but historically it's been opaque, slow, and hard to access. The holy grail really is a system that gives you the best of both. Platforms like the Sensei Yield Dojo are popping up to solve exactly this problem. The goal isn't to be an asset itself, but to act as a portfolio orchestration layer, a way for allocators to blend these two very distinct worlds into unified goal-based strategies. So let's take a peek at how a layer like this actually functions. An investor can compose strategies using both DeFi primitives and RWA sleeves, which in this case are sourced through GNIM Impact partnerships. This particular platform is powered by its utility token, the $GNIM, and it's built on a principle of total transparency, no black boxes. It's really designed to be institutional ready from day one, with all the risk guardrails and clear KYC pathways you'd expect. Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the how. Let's wrap up with what's probably the most important part, a real, actionable framework for institutions who are looking to take their first steps into this space. A smart path forward for any institution really involves 4 clear steps. First, define your objective. What are you trying to do? Is it cash management? Are you searching for market-neutral income? Second, set clear guardrails. What are your liquidity windows, your drawdown limits? Third, and this is key, start small. Pilot a small sleeve just to prove the operations work, test the reporting, validate the whole redemption process. And finally, use the data from that pilot to measure performance, and then you can scale up with real confidence. And that really leaves us with this final question. This transition isn't a matter of if, it's really a matter of when and how. Thinking about where these new tools fit into your existing framework, well, that's the critical strategic exercise for today's allocator. If you want to continue exploring the future of institutional yield, you can check out TraderSensei.xyz, learn about the sourcing process over at GNIM Impact, and join the community for early access to the Sensei Yield Dojo. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.